G'day Tēnā, welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs, beamed live from the palatial Stratus news bunker, buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show was the welfare figures Paula Bennett put out this week claiming 5,000 people were off the dole, they would at least be honest by pointing out 3,600 of those were actually declined or didn't complete the reapplication process. Epic fail, Paula. And tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone. The Greens and John Key up a tree. Kissing. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes Russell Norman trying to explain the political damage. The Greens changed their tone on cutting a deal with the anti-beneficiary, anti-union, anti-environment government. Apparently the frog thinks it can lie down with the hungry privatising lion. Destiny Church or Destiny's Child? Nasty, put your clothes on. National Party cry crocodile tears over redneck prison policy they themselves created. Plus this week, Sex in the Super City, Wanko the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hair of the Week Award. Leading the War on News this week, brothers and sisters, Labour Party MP Claire Curran thrown out of Parliament for wearing a Highlanders rugby jersey? What was Lockwood Smith thinking? He shouldn't have thrown her out for wearing the jersey. Did you see her brown boots? My God, now there is a fashion crime. Hello? Forget throwing her out of Parliament. People who wear boots like that shouldn't be allowed to vote. Materia Toure called throwing the loyal Claire Curran out as sexist double standards, which was a tune Dame Jenny Shipley was whistling when she pointed out that the latest round of handing knighthoods and damehoods out to the political cronies who help fund the political elites of New Zealand was really just an old boys club, which is unfair. It's not just an old boys club, it's a really mediocre old boys club. How mediocre? They lowered the bar so low that they could give John Banks a Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for just being mayor for 2 terms. That's the equivalent of giving your baby the Victoria Cross for using the potty properly. Brothers and sisters, Rhys Darby, the funny bloke we all love to love, has done a Green Party by fronting the controversial 3 strikes internet law while then claiming his sudden lurch to the right doesn't mean he supports the right. Confused? We all are. The government tagged onto the end of the Christchurch rebuild legislation new law that allows corporations to fine you for downloading copyrighted material. Why this was so bloody urgent, no one was sure. And what on earth cutting us off from the internet has to do with rebuilding Christchurch? No one was sure either. In fact, no one could really work out why on earth we would hand the power to disconnect New Zealanders from the internet to help the corporate profits in Hollywood. This is a law that the UN itself this week came out and criticised, so the corporations needed a nice smiley Gen X friendly face to sell this outrageous abuse of political power. Cue Rhys Darby. Rhys agreed to front the draconian campaign, but then once it was out and the backlash had begun, he announced that he didn't in fact support it and put as much distance between him and the new internet law or the money from his 2 degrees contract could allow. Meanwhile, expect the government to delay implementing the new law until after December, because once the sheer volume of sleepy hobbits wake up to fines from Hollywood in their letterboxes threatening to cut them off from the internet, all political hell will break loose, and there's no way National want that a month out from the election. Brothers and sisters, stop the presses! Stop the presses! Shrek, the sheep, has died, and the nation mourns. New Zealand's premier current affairs program, Close Up, went live to the shed Shrek was slaughtered in while playing a slow-mo montage of Shrek's life. Brothers and sisters, a new event horizon in current affairs has been reached. The mourning of one sheep, when tens of thousands are slaughtered every month, might seem a wee bit twee. That's because it is. Shrek wasn't just a sheep that hadn't been shorn for 6 years. He was a cultural bridge between Helen Clark's supposed nanny state stormtroopers of the dichocracy and redneck New Zealand, who didn't think she loved them enough because she didn't have children. Shrek was a way for 2 parts of New Zealand to identify. Sure, we hated each other, but we all love Shrek. Shrek's death is the felling of a mighty kauri tree for what passes as a cultural landscape in this country. And while some uncouth folk have made jokes about mint sauce at Shrek's funeral, we all need to desperately find a new cultural icon we could all rally around in times of crisis that isn't Maori, because apparently Maoris get everything. And whānau, I'd like to suggest the fitness dance craze Zumba as Shrek's cultural icon replacement. Now, while Zumba could never fully replace the special place in our hearts we all felt for Shrek the sheep, it can bring us all together and lift our spirits. And in the end, brothers and sisters, I think that's what Shrek would have wanted. To the headlines, whānau. The Greens and John Key up a tree. Kissing. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes Russell Norman trying to explain the political damage. The Greens have changed their tone on cutting a deal with the anti-beneficiary, anti-union, anti-environment government. Apparently the frog thinks it can lie down with the hungry privatising lion. Brothers and sisters, the Greens have all the political offensive capability of moss and believe over time, say maybe a century, their unblinking devotion to the environment will be accepted by all and progress will occur, minus all that nasty, shouty, pushy political stuff they disdain as much as non-free trade coffee, which is very respectful of them, and we should all give them a hug for it. Sadly, the reality of politics means the country will be under about half a kilometre of seawater from melting polar ice caps before the farming lobby and corporations who prop up the National Party ever go green. But this hasn't deterred the Greens, opening the door to John Key to say if the price is green enough, they'll cut a deal in their endless search for the mythical right-wing environmental voter. Sadly, no one seems to have told the Greens that the mythical right-wing environmental voter amounts to just Guy Salmon. There are more extinct moas living on the North Shore of Auckland than mythical right-wing environmental voters. Blue plus green equals that nasty bruise colour. So, if John Key comes to the Greens and says, "Hey guys, that crazy Don Brash wants to privatise all the assets, but if you give me supply and confidence, I'll only privatise half of them. What do you say?" Would the Greens survive the political contempt of cutting a deal with National the way the Māori Party have? Poor Peter Sharples has had to eat dead rat after dead rat after dead rat for his support. How many non-free trade dead rats would the Greens have to swallow to win the baubles of office, and would it be worth it? Moving on with the headlines, whānau. Destiny Church or Destiny's Child? Nasty. Put your clothes on. So, Shane Jones, Honei Arawera, Peter Sharples and Tau Henry all turned up to Destiny Church this week to have hands placed on them for a big prayer in what actually turned out to be a timeshare pitch for social services out of government coffers. So, where was Materia Ture? Destiny Church told everyone they had invited the Greens co-leader, but the Greens co-leader says no invite turned up. Two things about this. One, if you were organising a massive political statement, wouldn't you check that the people you've invited actually received the invitations? For example, how many chairs do we put up on the stage with Pope Brian Tamaki? 4. 4? Who's not coming? The Greens haven't replied. Oh, okay, can you call them and find out? See, Materia Ture didn't come because Materia Ture wasn't invited. Why? Because Met wouldn't have been nearly as polite as the boys were and would have called Tamaki on his hateful homophobia and jaw-dropping sexism. Which brings us to the second point. Christians aren't supposed to lie. So when the political leader of Destiny Church told Campbell Live an invite was sent to the Greens, but it must have been lost in the mail, isn't he breaking one of his own 10 commandments? Forget what the electoral office has to say about it. I think Destiny has some questions to answer with God first. Honei, Peter, Tau and Shane all said as politicians they have to go to listen to all sorts of groups, and even Materia said she would have considered going, and let's be honest, they are all politicians. Straight after pledging support to Destiny Church, they would have all been rushing off to the Lesbian Atheists Collective to pledge support there. That I think we can all accept, but to the issue of giving taxpayer money to Destiny Church to run social programs, let's just back the rapture up here for a second, shall we? Brian's argument is that the other churches get money, which isn't a justification for giving him some. It's a reminder that we shouldn't be giving any bloody money to any of these religions. You want to help the poor? Open up those golden churches you have and hand some back. And it would be a cold day in hell that we would really want to see any taxpayer money going to a homophobic, sexist slug like Brian. If Brian wants more cash and God is on his side, how about buying a lotto ticket and let Jesus pick your Powerball number, Brian? Failing that, sell your mansion and Harley Davidsons off. I hate to quote the Bible, but Mark 10:25, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. In one of the most disgusting displays of political crocodile tear U-turns, the National Party, in fear of losing the outright majority they thought they had before Don Brash appeared, are now desperately trying to appear moderate to stop moderates fleeing the possibility of a Brash-key government. Bill English led the change in tack when he helpfully pointed out that the redneck sensible sentencing rhetoric that National have built into an ear-screaming crescendo is actually a moral and fiscal failure, which it is. But for National, who have benefited from the redneck rhetoric most, to now pretend they care is a joke looking for a punchline. If National is so disgusted by their fiscal and moral failure of prisons, why are they continuing redneck knee-jerks by stripping away prisoners' rights to vote? If National are so disgusted by their fiscal and moral failure of prisons, why are they continuing to double bunk prisoners and ban cigarettes? If National are so disgusted by their fiscal and moral failure of prisons, why are they continuing it by handing prisons over to the private prison industry, who will seek to have the same corrosive effect they do on policy in America? No other party have played to the myopic mainstream media's focus on crime ratings and manipulate that anger for political gain than the National Party. Remember Simon Power in opposition screaming about flat screen TVs, underfloor heating and landscaping to rival the great gardens of Europe? National helped build the prison nation and now want to cry about having to feed it. Instead of harping on about the paltry amount in rehabilitation they've been forced to pay, National should relook at the entire tough on crime crap they've been peddling and actually force a rethink of punishment, minus any input from the Sensible Sentencing Trust. Then we would know their crocodile tears were more than the desperate pretense to look moderate in the light of Don Brash. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. Stephen Joyce has come out and told Aucklanders they don't get their electrified rail loop because his cost analysis is predictably lower than the super cities. Over the last decade and a half, Auckland has given Wellington over $7 billion in transport-related taxes. In return, Wellington has given back less than half in Auckland's infrastructure. Auckland isn't asking for more money from Wellington. We just want back what we've already paid in transport taxes. And Stephen Joyce, who never liked the electrified rail loop, has cooked the books to stop the rail loop, but have over $2 billion to blow on the holiday highway north of Puhoi. Less than 8% of Aucklanders commute. If we want efficient motorways so that our goods can get to market more productively, we have to get Aucklanders out of their cars and into public transport. And the only way that transport will occur is if the public transport is reliable, fast and comfortable. By consistently delaying the rail loop, Stephen Joyce not only denies Aucklanders access to infrastructure investment they've already paid for, he flies in the face of the landslide mandate Len Brown was given to force central government to spend more money on public transport. Why does National hate Auckland so much and love motorways? Love the Jaffa, hate the Jaffam. Whānau, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Wanko of the Week has to go to the knighting of our next Governor General, Jerry Mateparae. It is questionable whether a former military man and the current spy boss should be appointed to the Governor-General in the first place. Now there are the allegations that he helped find legal loopholes to hand over civilians to known torture units in Afghanistan, which demand an independent investigation. And knighting Jerry looks like an attempt at whitewashing his reputation in the light of those allegations. This isn't pinkos who are now asking angry questions about our role in enabling torture. These calls are coming from shocked, leafy, listener-subscribing suburbs. And the leafy, listener-subscribing suburbs are not happy thinking their brave boys are actually handing people over for torture. As Keith Locke points out, that number of torture empowerments has now jumped to 35. That's 35 separate times we have enabled torture to prop up a corrupt narco state. The government keeps denying we need an independent inquiry to find out if we are actually handing civilians over to known torture units, and if so, whether we have breached international law, and if war crimes have been committed by New Zealand troops. Such allegations demand answers, and not just to those the government write off as lefty liberals. Increasingly, many sections of New Zealand are angrily demanding to know, in the wake of the brilliant Metro article, just what the hell our SAS are doing in this immoral war. Knighting Jerry while those torture allegations remain uninvestigated is not a good look. Let's end the show by handing out this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award has to go to the increasing war in Libya. Now the West got involved in this under the pretense that it was a humanitarian crisis and we are protecting the civilians, to which many critics, me included, retorted this is just a war for Libya's oil, and pretty soon you'll start dumping the pretense of humanitarian crises and start to call for regime change. And nothing says regime change like an Apache attack helicopter. I'm not sure how an Apache attack helicopter helps in a humanitarian crisis. It can't shoot bananas into the mouths of hungry children, but it can apparently topple corrupt dictators, which, as you will remember, wasn't what was agreed when we started bombing Libya. Libya is about oil and resources. It isn't about humanitarian crises, and now it's about regime change. How quickly that mission creeps. That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget Citizen A plays Friday 7:30 p.m. Freeview 21 and Sky 89. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy out there. Righto.